Hello and welcome back to our Heart and Soul Conversations, this time again with our masculine feminine expert, Michael Olabode. We are here to talk relationships again. Never can get enough of this topic. Today we're going to talk about the 7 obstacles to healthy relationships. Let's see what they are and let's see how we can avoid them, please.
Oh, 7 obstacles to healthy relationships. And the first one is definitely if you haven't sufficiently recovered from your previous relationship.
Oh, yes. I can imagine that when you're still hanging on to that ex that you can't get out of your head. Very bad timing to get into a new relationship.
And let me ask you something, Henrika. What do you think is a symptom that you're still holding on to the ex?
That you're
still holding on
of them. That would be my main one. For some people, would probably to still have them on social media, to still stay in touch with them. Mind you, I'm a fan of being friends with people from your past, but to which degree, that's questionable.
Yeah, that makes sense. And there's a lot of discussion around, should you be friends with your ex? Should you cut them off? And there's some research that was done that shows that some people have an idea that by staying in touch with your ex is a symptom of maturity. But actually, the research shows that it's not a symptom of maturity and it's not a symptom of immaturity. It's not actually correlated. Mm-hmm. So whether you choose to or not is down to you and up to your decision. However, there's a difference between staying in touch and not recovering from that relationship, right?
That's right.
So we know that we haven't recovered from a relationship when we assume that the person who we're connecting with will act in similar ways to how our ex would, without actually taking them for who they are as a person. So we think that if they're getting a bit cold, that they're going to be hot, cold like it. So if they didn't text back to you, that they're going to be completely withdrawal. Or if they text you too much, then they're going to be too clingy, right? That means that we're viewing our present person with a past life lens. We are driving our car forward but looking in a rearview mirror. We're not relating to the person in the present. We're actually being quite absent with them in that sense. And so we know that we haven't sufficiently recovered if we find that the faults and the traumas and even sometimes the positives that we see are still in connection with a comparison of our ex.
Yeah, and how icky is it when you're being projected upon? If somebody is projecting their expectations, their memories, their hopes, their dreams, their everything. Because if you've ever been on the receiving end of this, I know I have been, it's the ickiest thing, because you know that deep down it's not about you at all. You're basically just that blank space that is being filled with ideas that have nothing to do with who you really are.
100%. And I'll share some with you if you like. And it's not necessarily even just from people who've been burnt from exes, but even burnt from previous friendships. That I remember being part of an incredible, like spiritual community. And sometimes what can happen is a person in their lives has had to fight for their love. Then they enter a certain community where love, kindness, compassion is just given without them having to fight for who they are or show off or anything like that. And so if they are very balanced, then they'll receive that with grace. If they're not balanced and they're still recovering from a previous connection or friendship, then they can perceive the nice qualities or the nice compassion as, hey, is there a hidden motive?
Yeah. Does that person have an agenda?
An agenda. And that's because when the person did accept someone who did unfortunately have an agenda, that manifested in a lot of hurt. And we haven't sufficiently released that hurt of the other person, but we haven't sufficiently forgiven ourselves for coming into contact and allowing that relationship to continue as well.
Yes, I found that in the end of my marriage, that was actually the bigger deal. Looking at how I had allowed things to slide for such a long time and had let myself down when really deep down I had known much earlier. Yeah, big point. Okay, so clinging on to your ex, number 1 mistake. What's number 2?
Next is that one's self-esteem is incredibly low. It makes us feel almost impossible that people deserve our love. or that we deserve love.
Okay.
We do need a certain amount of healthy self-esteem in order to have healthy and deep relationships. And the reason why is because we'll end up putting masks on. Lewis Howes talks about that masks of masculinity, and anyone can read that book and see that there's masks both that relate to the masculine and the feminine. For example, there's an athletic mask hiding behind being an athlete and trying to be appreciated for an athlete to hide an insecurity. Hiding behind a sexual mask, I'm a charmer, I'm a player, I'm this type of person. Hiding behind a financial mask, like a money mask. I've got so much money, or even an influence mask. And so it's a block to real love, because people fall in love with the mask. They don't fall in love with the actor behind the mask, because you don't give them an opportunity to. And also, if your self-esteem is so low, what can happen is when it comes to making requests, when it comes to interacting, you always have a fear to step in because you don't feel like it will be reciprocated, and you don't feel like you're worthy enough to make requests to receive that love that actually you're completely entitled to, not because of what you do, but because you exist. So it's super, super, super important that if we do recognize that, if you are struggling in some way with the mind, rather than bringing another mind into it, thinking that that's going to be the result, because now we're dealing with two minds, and minds can be very crazy.
Complicated even just on your own, 100%.
Rather than bring 2, 3, 4 minds in, let us see how we can sufficiently heal, cherish, and restore our own minds, so that how we relate to other people is very powerful. Remember, those who have low self-esteem also may either heavily get involved in loads of conflict unnecessarily, or heavily avoid them, which is also not healthy for having deep, real connections.
Yeah, exactly. So number 3, what's next?
That you have an addiction.
Any addiction, or an addiction to love in particular?
That you're not dealing with is a different. So an obstacle to, I mean, you've got things like, you can have certain substance addictions, fine. But we can also be addicted to certain types of behaviors. Alain de Botton mentions in that lecture, which was called How to Not Marry the Wrong Person.
Oh my God, that's hilarious, by the way. That is such a brilliant lecture. Anyone who hasn't seen it, Google Alain de Botton and that lecture. It's so worth watching. It's hilarious.
Good. He's an incredible presenter, and yeah, he's just amazing.
Isn't it actually why you will marry the wrong person?
Yeah, I think why you'll marry the wrong person, that is it.
Yeah.
And he mentioned the point that we can be addicted not just to certain substances, but even types of behaviors. Now, if we have an addiction that we're not dealing with, that can be an addiction to scrolling on Instagram, on social media, on thinking that I'm right, on drugs, on alcohol, on porn, on internet, on gambling, on just oversleeping, whatever it is. The issue with that it's not so much about, oh, that's right, that's wrong. No, it's just that addiction can take over the focus and attention and the sense control that's needed to operate in a smooth, functioning, happy, joyous, content, and satisfied way in a dynamic relationship. So the addiction, if it's not being dealt with, it can take over the life. So an addiction isn't a problem. We've all got addictions. We've all got ways that we relate. Russell Brand also talks about this in his book, Addiction, that talks about how we're addicted to certain behaviors, but if we're not dealing with it, that's an obstacle to healthy relationships. If we are dealing with it, then the person who we're connecting with, or if we're connected with someone who's dealing with certain addictions, we have to analyze the speed at which they are moving through that, and if that works for us, because you can't criticize someone being dirty if they're in the shower, right? They're in the shower and go, hey, you're really dirty. The person goes, hey, just give me some time, like that. So we have to know, hey, okay, this person's dealing with an addiction. Is it something that works for me? And if it does, great. But if they're having addiction and not dealing with it, it's very likely that may be something that takes over the relationship.
Yeah, absolutely. Good point. And I've seen that definitely in my friendship circle, that's happened on more than a few occasions. And it's heartbreaking to see, because they are usually good people, but because something is just a massive obstacle, they can't lift themselves out of that. What's number 4? Obstacles to healthy relationships.
We have a lack of self-understanding.
What does that mean? Elaborate.
Self-understanding. We don't know what we like. We don't know what we dislike. We don't know what we love. We don't know what we don't love. We don't know what we want to do with our lives. We don't know how we want to serve. We don't know what we can offer in a relationship. We don't know how many children we want. We don't know if we want children or not. If we don't have a certain sufficient level of self-awareness, it's difficult to translate that to someone else. So let's say, for example, I mean, here's a kind of funny or comical example. Let's say I say to you, hey, so what's your name? And you go, I don't know. And I go, okay, what's your favorite color? And you're like, I'm sure. And I'm like, okay, what do you like for food or dessert? And you're like, beats me, good question. How do I relate to you if you don't know you?
Yeah, absolutely. And plus there's this icky thing then of trying to always go along with what the other person suggests. And being on the receiving end of this, where somebody is just hooking into you, following whatever you are doing, that you're basically permanently in the position of responsibility for their happiness. Oh, it's the worst.
It's a big problem. And if you're always in a position for their happiness, what happens is you actually are contributing to removing their own responsibility to find that happiness within themselves. It can actually not only block you as a person, because you're always having to give, like you're saying, it can also block them as a person because they don't get to bloom into that butterfly that they should, especially when it involves a lot of growing pains, which for someone like an empath doesn't like anyone to see in pain, but sometimes that pain or that struggle, should I say, is sometimes the exact thing they need to bring out the beauty within them.
Absolutely. What that relates back to is a previous conversation we have had was about how important it is, particularly for men, to know that they can make their woman happy, to know that they can make their partner or that they can contribute to them in a way that lights them up, and they get that satisfaction and fulfillment from seeing the happiness in the other person. If the other person doesn't know themselves, that's basically impossible, because you have no measure, you have no, I was just going to say KPIs, it's probably not the right context in a relationship, but you have absolutely no idea what to aim for and what to do, and it's complete hit and miss.
And on top of that, if that person doesn't know themselves, they don't know if they want you or not.
That's true too, yeah.
If they don't know,
just rolling along, but never full commitment, because you don't even know who you are in going into that relationship. That's right.
And so if you're connecting with someone who doesn't know if they want you or not, you don't know if you're needed or not, or wanted or not, and so you don't know if you should invest or not.
Absolutely. So what's number 5?
So the next one is that you want all the benefits of being single and all the benefits of being in a relationship.
Oh yeah, that sounds very tempting indeed. Tell me more about that.
That's what. So whenever that one comes up, I always find it humorous, because we want everything of everything at all the times, right now, whenever we want, however we want, with whoever we want.
What's wrong with that?
Not reasonable.
Not, damn it.
It's only reasonable, or it's just not possible. That's right, I guess.
Yeah.
Because if everyone wants everything from everyone, then someone's got to sacrifice. You know how I say it? It's like if you throw a pebble into water and then you throw other pebbles into the water, they clash, right? Everyone's energy clashes in that way. But yeah, if you want all the benefits of being single, so you can text whenever you want, travel whenever you want, respond whenever you want, sleep whenever you want, work whenever you want. But you also want the benefits of being in a relationship, having the affection, the attention, the protection from the partner that you're with, having them respond whenever you like and appreciate, and having that connection. What can happen is it becomes difficult for you to have a deep relationship, because at sometimes you're going to go for the benefits of being single, and so you may cut them off. And sometimes you're going to go for the benefits of being in a relationship in which you engage. And so it creates a hot and cold atmosphere. And that isn't good for the security that's necessary both for you and the other person as well.
Yeah, and it sounds incredibly selfish at the same time also. Like if you want to basically have all the benefits of being by yourself, then there's very little interest in doing stuff that might not feel good for me just because it's the right thing to do. Sometimes, like compromising, right?
Exactly. Yeah, exactly. And one of my mentors once said that if you want to be selfish, stay single.
Yeah, and that's a great thing. Why not? And it's okay to do that. It's actually quite enjoyable. Like the longer I have been single, the more I have enjoyed this, and the higher the trade-off is to go into a relationship. So find yourself then also a person that you are finding worthy of sacrificing that for. If it's kind of like a lukewarm thing, then it might not be the right thing at all.
Yeah, definitely. I definitely feel like we should have a conversation specifically also on the benefits and some incredible, things we can get involved with while we're single. Like, how should we use that? How do we find purpose? How do we find that satisfaction? Because
do that.
One of the things that occurred for me is when I spent that time traveling in India and just being single and just trying to learn, it gave me the opportunity to develop a beautiful and deep relationship with myself. Whereas for a lot of people who I've noticed who've been in a relationship one to another, basically from 14 or 15 or 16, they've never actually built that relationship with them as a person. So they don't necessarily know what they want because it's always been in comparison or in contrast with their exes that they've had.
Absolutely. And I remember that after 10 years in a relationship and getting divorced, that I really had to relearn what do I want if it's just about me, what makes me happy if it's just about me, because I had really lost touch with that. There was so much always what's good for us, what do we need, that I wasn't even very much part of the equation at that point. So that actually took me time to rediscover for sure.
That makes sense.
Number 6.
Okay, so then next one is that you demonstrate a lack of gratitude.
Oh, yeah, icky.
Yeah. As we know, gratitude or kritigya means to know what's been done for us. It's a beautiful Sanskrit phrase. And gratitude basically allows you to be content and satisfied with what you have. If you don't have gratitude in general, it's very difficult to appreciate what your partner's bringing to the table emotionally or physically or financially or socially or intellectually or spiritually. And what will happen is you'll always demand more. The problem with demanding more from a person, if it becomes out of balance, we're not talking about healthy inspiration, is you consistently communicate to them that they are not enough.
Yeah, do you keep moving the bar? That's not fair. It's
not fair, and it makes them feel like, do I need to be someone I'm completely not just to please and satisfy this person? And we're talking about this from a very logical and, kind of chilled out perspective. But when you're in it, right, when you're attached to someone and you really love them and you're invested and involved, you hang on to their words, right? You hang on to what they say, you hang on to their actions. And so if you're constantly feeling like I need to change just to be worthy of this person's love, who I love, then my own existence isn't valuable. And so that can create
or being a strong woman, I've also experienced it in a different way, where it's like I actually have a fairly healthy sense of self. And if that other person doesn't have that appreciation for what is and as I am, there is then this conflict between protecting my healthy sense of self and wanting to be at my best in that, and feeling criticized and going like, hang on a minute, that's not right. And if you don't want me the way I am, I'll find myself someone else who wants me in that way. And that's not like coming from a threatening or, like defensive and angry sort of way. It's just a really healthy sense of self, I think. It's like if who I am truly isn't appreciated, then that's perfectly fine. But then you find yourself someone who is what it is that you want. Don't try to change me because you have a different idea.
100%. That makes total sense.
Yeah. And so number 7, what's the last one?
And the final is that you want a relationship before you're ready to hold one down.
Okay, that sounds like a lot of work.
Timing, but also, what's your desire? I sometimes have encouraged people in the past to be honest with wanting a relationship. So, for example, a lot of people go, yeah, I'm kind of open or looking, but they don't actually admit to themselves that they want a relationship, it's almost like shameful. Like, I don't want to feel like I need to depend on someone else. I'm a complete person. I'm a whole person. It's like, yeah, cool. But what's your heart saying? Like, do you want to go all the way alone?
Yeah, I think there's often a fear behind that of being hurt, or a fear of disappointment, a fear of wanting it, allowing yourself to want it so badly, and then being hurt or disappointed.
That's the thing. And we have to, sometimes it's important to check in with others that, and you can be quite honest and frank. If I was to be in a relationship, this is a question I love to ask. What is it about you or your character flaws that must change in order to have a successful relationship the next time you're in one? Because we want to have relationships, and we want to have experience, we want to have connections, but are we actually ready in our character, in our lifestyle choices to hold one down? Is it important that our relationship has a steady income? Are you earning that? Yes. Okay, so that's if it's not important, then it's not so much of a consideration. And there's some relationships where I know people relationships where their lifestyle is just traveling, teaching, and they live off donations. They just live very simply. There's not a particular household, and it works for them. And for others, it's a different preference. The character flaws that I have, based on what my ex told me in a probably unpalatable fashion, is, are they flaws that would actually destroy the next relationship I'm in? If that's the case, you're not. It's going to be an obstacle to a healthy relationship. Is there something about me that it doesn't matter who in the world I choose or who I'm with, it's going to crumble if I don't sort this out? And it could be anything like not honoring a commitment. You just find it very difficult to honor commitments, or you find it very difficult to make mistakes, or you find it very difficult to trust as well. So we know that that's going to be something that creates obstacles. And I guess the other point with that is, would our close friends agree, hey, maybe it's time to, look? Or would our friends say, hey, actually, that particular, trauma or something, that hurt that he's going through, I don't know if you're completely over it, but I feel like you should stay single and just enjoy life a bit, travel a bit, and work on yourself a little bit before you connect with someone else. Give yourself that room to breathe. You just came out of a 5-year relationship. Give yourself that room to breathe and just be yourself and just discover your passions and your purpose.
And it's painful when you're kind of probably people who are quite right for each other, but you're on the wrong timeline. That is really painful when you find a person that actually really connects, but there is just timing-wise something off. They are traveling, you are staying in one place, or they want kids, you don't, whatever it is. But it's still better to then, as early on as possible, call a spade and be truthful and live with the consequences than dragging each other along. I've seen people string each other along for months, sometimes years. And there is so much pain involved with losing that person, but also with feeling that you have been lied to, or that somebody hasn't been fully truthful.
100%, yeah. And that doesn't result in anything feeling positive.
And then it's basically almost love that person enough to be honest with them, and love yourself enough to be honest with yourself about what it is that you truly need. And some people just want to date for a while, and that's fine too. Like, I needed definitely some time to get my toes back in the water and to just be kind of open to that again, because before I was ready to meet someone, for sure.
It's true. And some people feel like they need that to build that confidence in being able to just like kind of present themselves, to just even work on their speech, right? Just work on communicating what they like and what they're interested in.
Sometimes when you've been single a long time, it's even just to see all the things you don't want again, so you appreciate more what you have when you find something that actually truly resonates. I found that quite valuable as well.
Yeah, just a funny point in that there's the ancient texts say that real wisdom is both vidya and avidya, which means to know what's to be known and also know what you don't really want.
That's right. So that's a good point for completing this series. 7 obstacles to healthy relationships. Guys, if you relate with what you've just seen, if you enjoy our content, please follow our channel. We're definitely recording more content, both with Michael, with myself, and with other guests. Hit the bell button if you want to get updates when we are releasing the next piece of content. Thank you so much, Michael, for being here. I always love our conversations, and we'll see you again soon.
Ooh, thanks a lot.
Take care. Bye.